Hello, Sagittarius, and welcome to Eye of the Centaur, your 2024 spring reading. I'm Eric Francis Coppolino, your friendly neighborhood astrologer here in the neighborhood office of Planet Waves. And let's see if I have got some real information for you. Your sign is the sign of the Centaur, and that is symbolic in that many of the events of the spring of 2024 involve Chiron, the first of the Centaur planets, probably about 20 of them by now, but Chiron was the first to be acknowledged. Then there came Hidalgo. That's another story, because something discovered around like 1920 was retroactively made into a Centaur. And then kind of Chiron became the second. But anyway, that's astronomical history. We are in a very big time for the Centaur planet, Chiron, closely associated with Sagittarius. It is one of two planets. Sagittarius is one of two signs that the early pioneers of Chiron were arguing over whether Chiron rules Sagittarius or whether it rules Virgo. Now, I don't know if I have my do I have my table of essential dignities here? I've got every other piece of paper I've ever owned spread out where you can't see it on these table surfaces. So the astrologers were kind of duking it out over, does Chiron rule Virgo or does Chiron rule Sagittarius? And I don't think it rules either. Because the ruleships are a classical system that is used by people doing very specific forms of astrology, and they're not subject to change any more than the moves of chess are subject to change. And you could redo the rules of chess. I don't know what the outcome of that would be. But anyway, Chiron, I think, is connected with the questing aspect through Sagittarius, right? The Sagittarius being the sign of the quest. That is the incarnation of Chiron connected with Sagittarius, and Virgo is the sign of integration and healing, a much more inwardly focused, introspective sign associated with things that are cosmic, like your body's relationship to your garden. Sagittarius is cosmic, like your body's relationship to the planet and the planet's relationship to the solar system and the galaxy. So one is a kind of an inwardly seeking cosmos. That's the Virgo aspect of Chiron. And another is an outwardly seeking expression of Chiron, and that would be the one that is connected to your sign, which is Sagittarius. And before I say much more about the astrology of the spring, about which I've said actually very little, I've just showed you this, which must be a tremendously frightening chart. Kind of cool, actually. Isn't that great? I mean, colored pencils really make it. Is that it is helpful to know that Sagittarius has resident in it more or less permanently. In other words, only moving because the Earth wobbles, and it does one of these wobbles in 24,000 years. So not going very fast. The Great Attractor, which is a vortex of the 100,000 local galaxies, and the galactic center, which is the vortex of our galaxy. This is very close. This is like 25,000 light years away. This is very far. I think 380,000 megaparsecs away. No, 380 million megaparsecs away. No comparison on scale of distance, but they're similar ideas because they're deep space points associated with galaxies, and they're in the same direction, and that direction is in Sagittarius. And so whatever is said to rule Sagittarius or not rule it, or whatever gets discovered, the idea that the most exotic things in all of astrology can be found in perhaps the most exotic sign in all of astrology is, I think, very exciting. Because if there's something bull-like about Taurus, for example, all you really get is a kind of a picture that nobody can figure out why that looks like a bull. Have you ever seen the South Park episode where the kids go to the planetarium? That's how the guy pronounces it. And Stan and Kyle say, "Well, we don't want to go to the planetarium. All the constellations look the same." Well, yeah, they do kind of look the same, and that's because you can't really see the thing that is supposed to be described. But with Sagittarius, there's a constellation of Centaur. I mean, obviously Centaurus, but the objects in your sign describe exactly what ancient philosophers said about your sign 2,000 years before those objects were discovered. How about that? Galactic Center, 1930, Great Attractor, 1980 or so. This is brand new stuff. And what this is telling us now in the modern world is that you are, in a sense, a stranger from a strange land. And you're also in a strange land, maybe even stranger than the one that you came from. And that is a lot about the life that you live. And I will add a couple of more points. That to have Capricorn as your second place describes a conservative, reserved, conserved system of values, as opposed to the usual freewheeling thing that Sagittarius is said to be. You think Sagittarius, oh, you must be talking about Jimi Hendrix. He was actually quite a soft-spoken guy, and also wrote songs that seemed freaky in the 1960s, and today they are considered standards. Things like Crosstown Traffic. And so he really wasn't that freaky. He just seemed like it, and he was cool and played a great guitar. But ultimately, Hendrix, for all of his wildness, was a traditionalist and creates a tradition. And so this is the power of Capricorn working in your chart. Capricorn's just undergone a massive transformation by Pluto being in it for the past 15 years, between 2008, and now it's going to be a brief dip in late 2024, but let's say 2023, just because that's like massive, last big full year. So it's 15, 16 years anyway, without worrying about splitting the ends of Chiron through Pluto through a sign. So that is also to say that you have been through a major upheaval in your sense of values and your sense of your own principles and your ethics. And the question to be asking yourself now is, if you go back to the you of 2007 and the things that you held to be fundamental principles, cosmic principles, universal principles, just principles to live by, maybe you were very serious about the fact that your family was Orthodox Jewish and that you really felt like you had to adhere to those things, and you were absolutely going to live in Israel and go to the kibbutz, and then all of a sudden you come out at the end of 2023 into 2024 and you're like, oh, okay, well, Jewish law, that's interesting, and they sure were right about some things, and then I've learned some new principles, and I'm going to think about other principles, and my girlfriend's a shiksa. Okay, so it is that kind of transformation, a kind of softening of your attachment to your own values and your principles, a matter of the second house I had not thought of till right now. Attachment to your principles. Get my point there? There are people who have principles, and some are like, yeah, I have a code that I live by. I have a way I like to do things, and then there are other people who are like, Mr. Stern,